what we're focusing on here is practical steps that you can use to crush your anxiety, and they are aligned with neuroscience, but I'm not dealing with mental health. So today we'll be talking about the crushing anxiety. Stop the anxiety spiral before it starts, and it's about prevention. Every day I'll be covering the same 7-step reset process, but I'll introduce new topics along the way, new subtopics. So the reset process is what it is, but it's aligned with neuroscience, and there's much to unpack. So each step has over a dozen levers in each one. So it's not just the 7-step reset. It's what's behind it that makes it work, but it's all aligned with neuroscience. One of the things I talk about is it's like you don't have to understand what the amygdala does or what the prefrontal cortex does to make this work. The same way you don't need to understand fuel injection and throttle bodies and turbochargers and spark plugs and independent suspension to drive a car. At the higher levels of performance on the track, yes, those things start to matter because you're competing with other people who are trying to beat you. But in life, what we have to do is govern ourselves, and to manage this system, we don't need the understanding of all of that. It does help. It's going to enhance it. I also say you don't need meditation. You don't need to believe that this works in order for it to work. The 7-step process is essentially the neuroscience applied in terms of, I originally designed it for transformation, but it applies for anxiety as well. And I used an illustration for that the other day. All right, so here we go. I'm doing this because I'm doing these live events because the amount of anxiety that's out there right now, and the amount of people who are feeling like that nothing is working, that the amount of people who feel like nothing is working, that they're unable to regulate, they're saying it, right? And then there's influencers out there who are passing their own stress onto others. So many influencers may not be trained on how to manage them, their state, etc. And they're expressing what they really believe and what they're really feeling, but it's just creating this more and more and more. There's like this small group of influencers complaining about this larger group of influencers. This is mainly in the U.S. because of the political situation and the changes going on. But they are complaining about these influencers who are, the house is like Chicken Little, the house is on fire, the house is burning down. So that's why I'm doing it. There was a headline, the thing that triggered it, there was a headline in Newsweek that said Americans are at the highest stress levels since the pandemic, March of 2020. So that's saying a lot. This is not mental health. What we're focusing on here is practical steps that you can use to crush your anxiety, and they are aligned with neuroscience, but I'm not dealing with mental health. It's talking about the normal kind of anxiety that happens, but when it builds up, it can turn into a spiral. You want to stop that spiral before it starts. The anxiety is likely to keep growing. I used to talk and still do talk about VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And someone mentioned to me, you know what, there's BANI now, and BANI is brittle, anxiousness, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. But when you look at the two of those, the VUCA is from the outside in, right? The volatility, the uncertainty, majority of it, complexity and ambiguity. But the BANI is inside out. We're getting more and more brittle. That's just that high triggered the high beta state that we're in. And then the anxiousness, as I said, so one of the things that many emotions get generalized up to anxiety, and as a result, the anxiety just takes on all of this meaning. And when you think about neurons that fire together, what you're getting is this exponential increase in anxiety because they're unrelated neurons that are firing that are creating this feeling. Now, again, I mentioned that people will say that they've tried everything. The challenge with that, if a person says I've tried everything, they don't realize it, but they're shutting off new information.